The only parts of this article that happen to be true are, yes, the horror goes on. British tourists did die, and it was in Egypt, it was in Sharm el-Sheikh. The only papers reporting that it had anything to do with Al-Qaeda were the British and American press. The Egyptian press acknowledged unequivocally and absolutely, with the evidence, that this was the work of Mossad. They knew why Mossad had done it, because 3 days previously the Egyptian government had signed a gas deal with the Palestinian Authority in Gaza for the Palestinian Authority to provide gas to Egypt. And the Israelis, who hadn't yet relinquished control of Gaza, were not involved. And Mossad were not amused. They didn't even try and hide the evidence. They simply got a car. The car even involved still had the cross-border plates that are necessary to come across the border from Israel into Egypt. It basically drove across the border, loaded up with explosives at some juncture, and was sent into Sharm el-Sheikh. So perhaps Mossad were trying to help their British counterparts in the security services and take the heat off of a bit of what had occurred the previous day. Every single Egyptian paper reported that this was the work of Mossad and it was related to the gas deal with the Palestinians. There is no mention of Al-Qaeda whatsoever. The reality is, within the UK right now, and of course within the US, is that there is only one agenda, and that is terror. Now let's come back to the issue of the victims of 7/7. They are starting to become concerned because they are not having the contact. I mean, it's like, everything else has moved on. New events. There are 52 people that died on that day. Now, wouldn't it be fair to say that if the family of Jean-Charles Menzies ultimately receive a sum in excess of $1 million, if it is ultimately proven that there is complicity, government complicity, in the events of 7/7, and that each of these deaths of the 52 people were as a direct result of that complicity, wouldn't it be fair to suggest that the compensation made available to these families is on a par with what is being offered, or what is ultimately offered, to the family of Jean-Charles Menzies? At the moment, these families have been offered and basically told that this is all that is on offer, £11,000. Complicity. It's a hell of a statement. Scary statement. But the reality is that this particular individual gave at least 2 interviews which made, talking about events, which made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. I think, and I put to you, that there are some very important questions that Peter Power needs to answer. These questions can only be answered and the answers brought into the public domain if there is an inquiry into the events of 7/7. Tony Blair shut down any possibility of an inquiry into the events of 7/7 within 24 hours, claiming that it would dilute the effort, etc., etc., etc. I suggest that there is perhaps an ulterior motive in why Tony Blair does not wish to have an inquiry into the events of 7/7. Peter Power, in his interview, stated categorically that he had been hired to conduct an exercise with an organisation in place of 1,000 people. Who is that company? What is the name of that company that contracted Advisor Consultants to conduct those exercises? Second point, what are the names of the individuals who established the contract with Visor Consultant? And what is their relationship with the British or any other national government? Next question. What was the full nature of the briefing given to Visor Consultants, and when was it given to them? Was somebody hiding behind this exercise? What you've got to remember is that if anything had gone wrong, this also presents a beautiful cover. Because had one of these bombers been caught, then somebody could have just said, oh, well, this is just part of the exercise, and dismissed it, and it wouldn't have got into the press in any way, shape or form. Next question. What is the relationship of Peter Power or any other member of Visor Consultants with the British or any other national security services? And with whom was the planning of the July 7th terror exercise shared? Who had prior knowledge that this exercise was going on? Now, obviously the questions potentially go on and on and on. You know, what is the relationship of the 4 supposed suicide bombers with this organisation or with the contracting organisation? This country has more experience of bombs, car bombs, than probably any other country in the world, with the possible exception of Israel and Palestine.